Yep, we have the shades on for this one. Roadhouse. The 2024 Roadhouse was directed by Doug Liman and stars Jake Gyllenhaal this time. The original one starred Patrick Swayze and is kind of a cult favorite. I'll talk more about that one in a second. In this version, Dalton is in Florida, in the Glass Keys, where he has been hired as a bouncer for a roadhouse and essentially has to keep out some extremely problematic customers. However, these problems begin to escalate when it seems that there are ulterior motives to obtaining this roadhouse, and eventually he has to become more and more violent, and it leads to a bunch of really crazy action. The original one is a cult classic of a film. 30 years ago or so it came out. I feel like this is one of those movies that has ingrained itself into pop culture in such a way that despite the fact that a lot of critics did not like it, it found its fan base and it has aged very well in the eyes of that fan base. To date, people will talk about the original Roadhouse, constantly quote it, constantly watch it. This is a movie that has a very impressive following, and a lot of that for me is also because Patrick Swayze really was one of a kind when it came to acting. There are some actors who they have that kind of quality to them that you just know you're never gonna see again. And when we lost Patrick Swayze, I feel like that was something that also went. He is an actor who was constantly bringing something very charismatic to the screen, and even with Roadhouse, Point Break, Dirty Dancing, he was able to accomplish something that was truly just one of a kind. It was for him. And I won't lie to you, going into this one, I was a little worried, but my initial thought was, I hope it's better than the last time they tried to remake a Patrick Swayze film that was a classic. This is how you remembered a Point Break remake existed, didn't you? If you didn't know a Point Break remake existed until this exact moment while watching this video, congratulations, you know it exists. My advice to you, don't watch it. I can say this is a better movie though. This is definitely a movie that has a lot more going for it, and while I don't think it's perfect by any means, I didn't even think the original one was perfect. This is one of those movies that you could do a very serious review of and give a proper breakdown of certain things, and I will give some breakdowns. But at the end of the day, I feel like I would be lying if I said I didn't have a silly, dumbass grin on my face throughout most of it. As over the top and bizarre as it gets, and as many issues as it has, I did actually have a genuine blast with a lot of it as well. I feel like if this is one of those things where if you just kicked back with a cold one and watched it on your couch, you'd honestly have a really good time with it, because it doesn't take itself as seriously, and I think that's a good thing. Sometimes it does. The moments when it does, I was a little surprised. I'm like, nah, dial it back. Have fun again. What's going on over there? Because there's a couple of moments in the second act in particular, I was like, what are you doing? There's a tone change. Get back to the silliness. And whenever it was embracing that as well as it could, it was doing a damn good job of that. And it was genuinely very over the top once again. It tries to be a lot like the original Roadhouse while doing different things with its story. Dalton's background in this is very different than the one that we knew from the original version, along with some differences. I mean, there are some similarities and there are things that they have definitely tried to parallel in some ways. But for the most part, it is doing some stuff on its own regards. And Jake Gyllenhaal is very fun in the movie. This is an actor who I feel commits to every performance that he is in. 110% this man is coming with it all. And once again, that is the case with Roadhouse. He gives everything to Dalton, both physically and in just the performance of trying to be this nice guy who is just in the town to try and live his life and eventually gets pulled into some nonsense and then eventually has to kick some ass. And that's pretty much the entire basis of the movie. And I think he did a great job with that. I thought almost the entire cast was very fun and very entertaining. I say almost because there was one exception, and I'll get to that in a bit. The action is also very well choreographed, although there are these things with CGI inserts that they do, especially when it comes to trying this one-shot stuff that I was a little surprised to see, especially because it doesn't look as good most of the times. There's this hyper-editing, hyper-frame rate kind of thing that they do, and I don't know if that fully works. In a couple of sequences, it was a little more effective, but in some, they really weren't, and I feel like it took away from the brutality of those scenes. The original one was able to embrace that brutality extremely well, so I was a little surprised that it had to try the stylish thing, but I feel like you could have easily done some stuff in camera over here. The soundtrack, once again, a lot of it is live music. In the original one, there's a lot of music going on during the entire proceeding. Once again, there's a lot of bands who are brought in, different musical groups. They're playing songs as everything goes down. And I was also really impressed with that. That was a nice little, carry through from the original one. I'm glad that they had some of that in here as well. And so there were things that I was enjoying in this movie. As a story, it's paper thin. There isn't really that much. There is a plot line going on regarding, wanting to destroy the Roadhouse and do some bad stuff because there's a villain played by Billy Magnuson who wants to have his grip on it for reasons. And all of that is really silly. You're honestly not even really caring about that. You really are there for the ass kicking, and you do get that. But I do think that it is important to mention that, yeah, that is an issue. You're not going to get much of a story here. Now, I mentioned almost every performance in the movie is having a good time. Everything is working. The one that I was a little on and off on, though, was Conor McGregor. Now, I'm sure most people know who he is. He is a UFC fighter, and he is someone whose name you've heard 5,000 times because he's like the most famous one. In this movie, he is playing himself, which is for better and for worse. Some moments I think he works extremely well and he's having a very good time with it. Some moments I don't think he quite knew that there was a camera on him and it was, hey, you should act now. I don't really know. It was a bit of a variation on and off. It kept going for me because in the moments where it was working, I was like, try more of that. That's good. That's okay. That's something over there. That fits the tone. And then there are moments where it does not fit the tone at all. I was like, you see, you're losing me over here. And so I feel like, it's one of those things where it doesn't quite work as well in execution always, as much as the concept does work in a sense. That being said, when it comes to the fighting, there's a reason he is a UFC champion. Like, this guy is brutal when it comes to some stuff. There was a couple of bare-knuckle fights where he really does, open a can of whoop-ass on Gyllenhaal's Dalton. But make no mistake, Dalton is also pretty good in this movie. I did have one big problem with the movie, though, which was basically Dalton's backstory. In the original one, they really do a mystery thing with it. They try to, take some time in trying to tell you what's led to this moment with him. And I liked how they handled that in the original movie. In this one, they really want to tell you. And there is a version of this story, over here, like how things played out that has led him to this moment. And I thought, you seem really eager to tell me, and there are times where they'll really try to hone in on that, and I felt like it took away from some of the mystery of that character. I liked the idea of that in the original movie, like, who is this guy? But even from just, a couple of scenes with him where things are a little vague, you can tell that this guy has been somewhere. Things have happened. And you get that over here too, but again, movie wants to tell you how he got here. So overall, did I enjoy the new Roadhouse movie? Well, it depends on how you're asking me that question. If you're asking me, is this a fundamentally like a good movie in terms of, like a filmmaking perspective, I would say not exactly. It's a very mixed bag, but I would be lying to you again if I said I didn't have some fun with it. I was laughing and having a good time, and genuinely this is a movie that I think that if you got your group of friends over, you cracked up on a few drinks, you honestly might have a really good time with it. As such, I don't feel like giving a grade actually. I just feel like saying go check it out for yourselves. Let me know what you guys think of it, and when it comes to the legacy especially, I want to know what happens, because we're talking about the original one years later. I wonder if the new one is going to have that kind of a legacy. Who knows? Maybe 20 years from now, you'll be hearing the gospel of Jake Gyllenhaal's Dalton. Time will tell. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more videos very, very soon. Let me know what you guys thought of the new Roadhouse if you've seen it already. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies. Roadhouse!